Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Locke, and I'm the Product Strategy Manager for PeopleSoft's Purchasing, Strategic Sourcing, and Supplier Contract Management. Today, I'm going to do a quick demo of a recent feature that we released in Image 37. And this is the PeopleSoft Fluid Purchase Order Acknowledgements. It's the buyer-facing side of the house. So with that, even though I'm talking about delivered functionality, I do need to include our safe harbor. And if you've attended any of our roadmap sessions, you'll understand that we're still delivering a lot of features and functionality. That's not only just the strategic initiatives, but also the customer-driven enhancements. And this is one of those types of enhancements. It came through the idea space, and we also were in contact with our customer advisory board, and it was a very high priority for them to see some movement in this area. So with that, I would like to just kind of briefly describe the POA process. Most of you are probably familiar with this, but this is just the confirmation from the supplier to deliver goods in quantities. And then also pricing and time-wise. With that, this could start with a requisition, and then you could then take that requisition or becomes a purchase order. At this point, when it's the purchase order, then we are dispatching that to the supplier. And in Image 27, we provided a fluid purchase order acknowledgement, which was the supplier facing into that. And then they could then either accept, reject, or request changes. And it's in that area where they reject or request changes is the buyer facing functionality. So it's in this area that we want to concentrate on. So like I said, this was in an idea space, and we had some really not so popular or comments out here where, you know, it really wasn't meeting the needs of you as the customer. So we took that at heart and wanted to make something that's simple, not only for your users to understand, but also make it much more efficient as well. So with that, we faced several different challenges. We had two different UXs for online and EDX. And by that, you had to go into two different components to find the information that you're looking for. The search results, you had to sift through several purchase orders to find a purchase order or the purchase orders you're needing to work on. There's very little filtering or narrowing down that particular purchase order. So that information that was there was then buried into several tabs and across several pages. So with all of that, it was just, you know, for lack of a better word, it's a complete mess. So just kind of want to kind of give you an idea of what you are currently facing if you haven't taken this feature already. You had multiple interactions, one with the EDX and one with online. And then once you got to this component, then searching for the purchase order, it just wasn't sufficient. There's no way to filter the information. And then the view itself really wasn't working to be like a kind of a work list, if you would. So what we did was we took kind of a holistic approach and said, okay, what is it that you as a organization or a buyer needs to have to make this a lot simpler? And so what we wanted to do is provide an exception-based search results. So what that means is only the items that have a change to it are then provided as a work list. And then we also are providing, because this is built in Fluid, it does provide a much better intuitive user interface. and we've combined both the online and EDX. Those interfaces are now into one component. We also highlighted the fields that were changed. So it draws your eyes or draws your attention to those particular areas of interest. And then we have provided multiple filter options, so you can then find the information that you're looking for much easier and quicker. And then if you do need to step away from your desk or from this process, you could then mark a line as being reviewed and do a save for later. And those filter options would then allow you to see the information that maybe has not been reviewed yet. So with that, I would like to start off with, I attempted to do a demo, and just the performance itself, it was dragging quite a bit. So apologize for all the slides here, but as you know, we cannot control some of that, but hopefully I've captured all the information that you're needing. And if you do have any questions throughout the sessions, please enter those through the Q&A, and I'll leave time at the end to respond to those. So what we have is we identified PO acknowledgements. We've added 2 new tiles to the procurement operations homepage, and then we also provided a My Preferences. So this My Preferences, as you can see here down where it has the PO acknowledgement, we have multiple areas here where it needs to be updated by you, the buyer. The number of days as far as what your from and to range will be is set up here. We have a default as 30. The default line filter, this includes either changed items or all items. And by default, we have that set to changed items. So your list is going to be a lot less than any items or any rows that have been accepted by the supplier. And then we also have exclude reviewed lines as default, which means in this case, yes, when I do a filter, it's going to go ahead and when I come back later, it will automatically filter those for me. So it's only showing the rows or the information that I have yet to take. And then you have the option to include item images, and you can turn that on or off. And then finally, the approve with pending review lines. We have, in this case, we have allow, meaning I can approve this purchase order acknowledgement, or the other options here are error or warning, meaning I must select each row to be reviewed. And if that meets that criteria, then it's going to go ahead and save that for me. If I have the allow, it doesn't do that that check. So that validation is turned on when you select either error or warning. And then depending on that selection would either stop you or just give you a warning saying, hey, this line has not been marked as reviewed. Do you want to continue? So with that, we'll go back here to the procurement operations homepage. And as you notice here, we have 5 POAs that are awaiting our attention. So by clicking that tile, on the left-hand page, you'll notice the from and to, and that's the 30 days of the user preferences that we just looked at. And then you're obviously able to change any of that filter information. So if you know the particular PO or something, you could still enter that information here. The supplier responded. That just indicates that these are the POAs that the supplier has sent back. You could, in theory, look at the POAs that are yet to be responded. And then we have additional facets here. So if you know a supplier that you want to work with, you could then select that particular supplier, and or that just filters the search results. And then on the right-hand side, we have the rows that meet that particular criteria. So when we select a particular purchase order, we then are brought into the actual POA acknowledgement page itself. And the first thing I want to show here is, you'll notice up here we have changed items. And if I change that to all items, you'll notice it went from 1 row to 4 rows. So there's 4 rows on this particular purchase order that needed or was originally sent out. One of those rows came back with a change. So the highlighted area or this green area indicates the line in which we need to take attention. And the same thing is true here in the show modified schedules. So with that checked, it's only going to show the 1 row that we had, or if there were several changes, then it would display those accordingly. You could then, in theory, check or uncheck that just to see if there's any additional information. But the next thing I want to draw to your attention is you can also collapse this this line information. So this gives you a little bit larger workspace to make sure you see all the different fields and functions. And then next thing is the icon to indicate that it's either a changed or a change order. That's the changed order trigger here is the icon, meaning it goes back to your purchase order change order template, and you define what fields and changes are going to cause a change order. So what we're doing is saying the supplier made a change, and in this case, it's going to create a change order. So when we're finished, if we do accept this, there is going to be a PO change order that is going to be then issued and sent back to the supplier. Excuse me. Next, I want to talk about the reviewed. So once you mark the line as reviewed, you notice over here on the left that the status is then updated. So now you have a particular line that has been reviewed. And with that, you can then filter all these rows. So if I had a purchase order that had several rows that needed to be reviewed, I could either include or exclude those. So if I do a save for later, I could then pick up where I left off, and then I could exclude those that I've already reviewed, leaving only those that need my attention. And next, you also have your line actions. And in this case, if you want to reset all those values back to the purchase order, you could just do that by a click of this little button. And then also, if you want to reject the line item, then you're able to choose reject as well. Next, let's talk about the header actions. So inside here, we have the ability to just view the header information. We also have the ability to reset the entire PO back to its original values. So different from the line is you're only working on 1 line, whereas this would reset everything back to the original PO value. And the same thing is true where you reject all lines versus just the 1 line that you're working on. So the header actions obviously apply to the entire purchase order, whereas the lines is only specific to that particular line. And then the save for later and supplier review. So the save for later is basically just that. You're able to save your work and then pick up where you left off. The supplier review option, this pushes the information back to the supplier. It does not approve your purchase order acknowledgement. It just sends it back into their queue to review what you've made. And then obviously the approve, that pushes the information forward. So in this case, we're going to accept their change, and the result will then create a PO change order. And by selecting yes, then we'll run that process behind the scenes. And then finally, when you're finished, you'll notice now there's only 4 lines. So your work list has just gone from 5 lines to 4 lines. So this landing page will kind of give you your to-do list. Once you've got to the 0 rows, then obviously you're finished. And the next option is just going back to the procurement operations homepage. The other icon, the POA history, this just gives you a additional way to view what has taken place. So if we select a particular purchase order, you'll notice it has the accepted with changes made, and then if you drill into the line number, you're able to see what those changes are. Different in that it doesn't show the indicator like we did previously, but you would be able to compare different columns or different fields for that. Okay, that's all I have for the purchase order acknowledgements. What I want to do is just plug an upcoming presentation. This is talking about the comprehensive supplier portal. This is with Amira Marcos, and we're going to be talking just more functionality of what your current license may offer you and how you could leverage some of that information. And I will also be manning our Oracle booth, so if there are any questions you may have outside of this session, I'll be there to answer those as well. And then finally, we do have several blogs, so if you want to keep up to date with not only the product strategy, but maybe even the people tools, what they're doing, you're able to subscribe to those particular blogs. And then finally, I guess the comprehensive, where everything you need to know about PeopleSoft is the PeopleSoftInfo.com, and then you can see here all the different things that you're able to get off there. So with that, I'm going to flip back over and just see if there are any questions here. So how does this work with POA tolerances? If it falls within the tolerance, does it show as a change? Mike, that's a great question. I don't know the answer offhand, but I'll follow up with you on that, and maybe I can get that response to you during the conference as well. So hopefully I can get that to you quickly. Next is, can you opt to not allow users to run the PO change we have scheduled in batch? The option here, Wendy, is no by default. However, I don't know if you're able to control that from a security standpoint. You may look to see if page and field configurator could then mark that as be display only, or some other option like that maybe. Hopefully that would then take care of that particular answer or that issue. Again, page and field configurator is a tool that we've provided to help eliminate customizations. So if you're not familiar with that, we can provide more information on those as well. But hopefully that will answer that question. And how would you reject if the POA came through EDI? Is there also a process delivered to do this? Can you tell if the POA originated from EDI? Yes. So in the presentation, or in the page itself, there is an indicator if it was online or EDI. So that indicator is there only for mainly information purposes. It really doesn't distinguish between one or the other as far as functionality. With the PO page going to Fluid, will the classic version be retiring? If so, when? So Cheryl, that's a great question. Right now, we don't have any plans to retire the classic version. However, once we deliver comparable functionality, it tends to kind of get on the radar to be decommissioned. My understanding is it's probably 18 months to 2 years before that would potentially be decommissioned, but don't hold me to that as well. Can you rearrange fields? No. Right now, the only way you'd be able to potentially rearrange fields, we don't have that functionality yet in Fluid. I believe that is potential enhancement that we're looking at, similar to Classic, where you can customize or personalize your page. But I don't believe that is available in Fluid currently. Any special consideration to be taken before switching from Classic to Fluid for PO acknowledgement? No, not really. The main concern here would be in Fluid, you would have kind of a work list. Those same items should currently appear in your Classic. The problem that you may have is you'd have to sift through your Classic to see if they all show up. But in theory, once you invoke this the Fluid page, you're basically ready to roll. There's really no additional consideration other than maybe what Wendy had mentioned is if you don't want your users to initiate the change order, then you may want to consider disabling that option. And we use the Buyer Center to tell buyers when they have stuff to do there. We use the POA work list item since the work list moved away in favor of approval style. We kind of lost the ability to show buyers when they have POAs. Oh, I'm sorry. Be delivered option. So yeah, will the delivered option or the intent to send buyers to tiles to see these? Yes. So you are able to leverage this tile however you want. If you put it on the buyer dashboard or however you set up your nav collection, you would be able to use this tile in that particular buyer using their user preferences. So if they're able to have multiple supplier or multiple buyers, then they could potentially work those transactions as well. So you would potentially leverage this tile similar to how you're doing your work center, in the sense of just giving them the security or the access to get it. And yes, that was in PUM 37, which just came out last month. Are the header and line codes being, oops, where did I go? Are the header and line codes being evaluated? Meaning, if the supplier sends back all values that match, but lists the line as rejected, will the system understand that? There's evaluating each field to determine if there is a change. Yes, I believe so. So, however, meaning if they reject the line, then it comes in as rejected. Or if they altered a field in that line or multiple fields in that line, each of those fields that were altered would be highlighted in the POA page. Okay. In the past, we've had issues with how the POA page interacts with schedules for EDI orders. I would believe so. So Gary, this is addressing your question as with the schedules for EDI orders. I believe it has. However, I have not been fully involved with the actual testing itself. But my understanding is when all these fields have been brought forward, I'm not sure if you noticed there was multiple tabs. In fact, let me see if I can get back to some of that. So, oops. So inside here, you have price and delivery, and then you also have item information. I didn't show a screenshot, which I probably should have and covered that. But what we tried to do is divide and conquer, meaning what is the most important information probably from acknowledging a purchase order. It's probably the price, the schedule, the quantities, that type of thing. Item information also includes manufacturer distributor type stuff, or manufacturer information, the product code, those types of things. And you notice here there's an icon where it has price and delivery. If there was a similar icon on the item information, then that would indicate that there was a change on that tab. So you would go from the price and delivery tab to the item information tab. So I'm hoping that answers your questions or makes sense. Can you default the My Preferences for all buyers? I don't believe so, Wendy. The reason being is the My Preferences is individual. You may be able to default the initial values, and then using page and field configurator, maybe you could make those display only or something like that if that's what you're considering. I'm not sure exactly, but that could potentially be an option there. Oops. Okay, I think PO mass maintenance also triggers the PO change process. Giving option to trigger the process from many places opens issue. Praveen, that I would have to get back to you. I'm not as familiar with the PO mass maintenance piece, so unfortunately, I really don't have an answer for you right now. I'll need to get back to you on that. The acceptance-based search results, does that include if you have configured tolerances? Okay. Again, that was asked previously. I just need to get back to you on that. I don't know offhand how that matches the exceptions or not. So, okay, Lonnie, does the PO acknowledge tile filter results for current logged in buyer? Is there a way to use PO acknowledge tile for procurement managers page so they see all outstanding POAs? Yes, that tile is individual, meaning if you are a buyer, it would show you your acknowledgements and those that you are able to you have authority to work with. So if someone goes on vacation, etc., I would believe the same would be true, assuming the procurement manager is also set up as a buyer and has that authority, that type of thing. So yeah, I believe that is indeed the case. Okay. Okay. Going through here, I still show some open questions, but I'm not sure if I'm able to get to all of those. So that works. We now handle all the codes that the vendor send instead of just the current ones, and PeopleSoft recognizes. Yes, we looked at all that different values, and we have implemented or accounted for all the different various codes. Okay. Okay, I think that answers all those questions. So I will be getting back to you on especially the acceptance base, what your tolerance might be, how that's specifically handled. So I'll let you know once I have that information. Okay. Is a buyer's role in processing a POA delegated to another buyer approver? So Bonnie, the question here is a buyer's role in processing and delegated to another buyer approver. It's really not used as a approver per se, but when you're setting up your user preferences, or excuse me, your user settings, there's an option inside that area where it has procurement or purchasing, and then you're able to give it the different roles. So if you can approve or deny, you know, that type of action. And then in addition to that, there's options to insert buyers that you have authority to also have particular actions against. That's what I'm referring to, rather than kind of a like an approval type framework or anything along those lines. So I hope that makes sense. If not, again, I'm going to be in the Oracle demo area or expo area. So if you do have any other questions, I'll be glad to try and answer those as well. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, with that, I know we're at our time limit, but again, thank you for joining, and I look forward to chatting with you later. Bye, guys.